Kadosh Boker Or Shavua Tov Bekiim Halacha 3, day 16. We are on page 31. Halacha Aleph. We're starting Siman Vav. Right? We just finished the preface and now we're starting the halachot. We're talking about now the ma'alot of Birkat Asher Yatzar. We're talking about the Beracha Asher Yatzar, and we want to speak about the greatness of it. So it says, Kol hayom keshe'oseh tzaracha ben ktanim megdolim mevarech Asher Yatzar. The entire day, whenever you're going to do your necessities, whether we're talking about number one or number two, you will make the Beracha of Asher Yatzar. So the Anshe Knesset, the men of the great assembly, were the ones that instituted this beracha. And look how many great wisdom, right, great secrets that they have inside of this beracha. Okay, that is going to be the halacha number one. Kama gedola halacha bet. Kama gedola birkat asher yatzar berai binyana. Look how important is the birkat asher yatzar. V'kama metukanet metukano milotea lemishu misakel bahen binyan emet. First, really be'emet pays attention to it. Look how great are the words. There's no greater bracha like Birkat Asher Yatzar, that it's teaching every single individual that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that he's mafli la'asot. He does incredible wonders, and he is rofech chol basar. He's giving us the cures. Okay? Vivarech Adam, Birkat Asher Yatzar, the person should bless Asher Yatzar Yoma Milah. Right? It says every single time you should say every single word. You should think about the chesed that Hakadosh Baruch Hu does b'chol shan every single moment. That he goes to his necessities. That it can actually make that he could stand up. But if not, he wouldn't have all the money in the world for different refuot. Right? At the end, he's just going to die. So he comes and he makes all these different types of like machineries and everything inside of the human being in order that it's be able to bring in and to stay in everything that he needs, and to take out all the refuse which is fitting to take out, to bring in the fine flour. It's a play on words, right? To bring in the good and to take out the refuse, the bad. And to keep healthy his body, that it should be fitting to service HaKadosh Baruch Hu his entire lifetime. Ve'im ha'adam yeh shalem b'deotav u'mchalkem b'mishvat dvarav. Now, if a person is going to be complete and whole, and he's going to weigh his words and everything, lo yechelek kol yamav, so then he will never actually become sick. He will never actually come and need a rofeh. Not the cures. So therefore, obviously, we should come and pray properly to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu he'll never need a doctor. Right? That's just the way that it is. You'll never come and need a doctor. Okay? Next halacha, last halacha. Asul la'asok b'shum esek, afilu kol shehu, right? Sh'shum mevarech. You're not allowed to do nada. You're not allowed to do nothing when you're making a beracha. So a lot of people, they come and they dry their hands, right? When? Or they make the beracha and they're walking one place to another place. So they're coming, they're blessing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, derech harai. Who says this? This is the Ben Ish Chai, by the way. Joseph Chai. So therefore it's going to be without kavanah. You have to be careful on every beracha. Wow, this is not you understand? These are very powerful words. A lot of people are nichshalim in this beracha more than any other beracha. And the reason why is because at the end of the day, since we're running around all day, you just went to the washroom, you're coming out, you're running. So therefore, obviously, this is going to be a problem. Says the footnote number 298. This is the ruling of the Yosef Chaim in the Ben Ish Chai. According to the Lichot Shlomo, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, he always recited the blessing of Asher Yatzar after he finished drying his hands. The Turei Zav and other Achronim issued stern warnings not to engage in any activity while making a bracha. They explained that such a behavior is actually a sin of going with Hashem ba'akrai. So to minute, don't make for me just like casual. It is forbidden to treat mitzvot as if they were accidental and unimportant. So to minute, shemamash ben adam tzarich, he has to pay attention. The mitzvot are not just stand like that. Okay, so the Rivot Ephraim, he comes and he says like this: the Shut Rivot Ephraim suggested in defense of the common practice that drying the hands, right, displays honor for the blessing one is reciting. If so, we can say that the person is not involved in another activity, but he's included in the process of making the bracha. He said Reb Chaim Kanievsky explaining the act of drying the hands is part of the mitzvah, and therefore it's permitted even while doing the bracha. Okay, so you have a Reb Chaim Kanievsky, right? But again, the Yosef Chai, Ben Ish Chai says no. Kanievsky's rationale, however, is quite difficult to comprehend. The act of drying the hands has nothing to do with the mitzvah, right? It is perfectly acceptable to recite the blessing even when the hands are wet, right? And dry them afterwards, or even to dry them whenever you want, or you don't even have to dry them. There's no mitzvah. There's no mitzvah to come and to dry the hands. So therefore, he comes and he says, "What's the connection?" And then to say the bracha, what advantages is there that you're drying it during the bracha? It just doesn't make sense. So he says, if we're dealing with the blessings of Netilat Yadayim, then there's some logic to it. Why? Because again, and really it's al Netilat Yadayim, you have to have the dry hands. So then you could argue if someone makes a bracha while drying the hands, okay, so he's not doing something else. Okay, maybe. In fact, Shalom Zabin Arbach cited, right? He has actually cited that says, right, that for this very reason, one may dry one's hands while saying the bracha on Netilat Yadayim. The Orchot Rabbeinu brings down Chaim Kanievsky did this also. So this is the Rav Yaakov Yisrael Kanievsky. This is the Stipler, okay, the father of Chaim Kanievsky. So he says it's my suggestion that people avoid doing this, since it's possible that someone will finish drying the hands before making the bracha, and if it happens, it might not be longer to recite the bracha. The best way, therefore, is to recite the blessing before beginning to dry the hands. That's what you should do. At any rate, right? He says that discussion applies only to blessing on Netilat Yadayim. When it comes to the Yatzar, there's no logical argument to come and say dry your hands. For what? It doesn't make sense. The Sefer HaKaneh, he ruled that after performing Netilat Yadayim, upon waking up in the morning, one should recite the blessing of Al Netilat Yadayim while drying the hands. Right? He says, Rav Yaakov Chaim Sofer, the Kav HaChaim, he comes and he says, challenge this, right? Ruling. He says, since it's forbidden to do any activity while doing bracha, he suggested in this case that drying the hands is part of the mitzvah, since the harmful forces are not removed until you dry the hands. So therefore, he wouldn't want to say, when you dry the hands, now the harmful forces are away, and therefore it's going to, now you're doing the mitzvah, basically. Rav Sofer demonstrated that there are times when it is correct to perform an act while in the middle of the beracha, such as the mitzvah Birkat mazon, over a cup of wine, where one is supposed to pour 3 drops in the middle of the beracha, right? He says, so why did Sefer Kaneh rule to say the beracha while drying the hands? Wouldn't it be better to dry the hands first, remove the harmful forces together, right, all together, and then you make the beracha? Perhaps this ruling, right, is a compromise, and that still allows an element of osvilasiatan. It could be. But after the hands have been washed clean, the Mishabra challenged the ruling of the Taz that while performing a mitzvah it is forbidden to engage in any activity. He contended that this is contradicted by the ruling of the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch, that if someone is working when the time of reciting Shema arrives, he must stop and say the first paragraph of the Shema. Nevertheless, he may resume the work while saying the second and third paragraphs. Right? He says, and certainly while reciting the blessings before and after. So he says, 1 second, you're making the berachot. So he says that Rishon LeZion, though, he cited this included that it's sufficient as a basis for leniency for common practice reciting on Netilat Yadayim while drying one's hands. Despite this, we cannot simply brush aside all the Achronim who cited the Taz and rule accordingly. As Tarat Hamayim, who discussed the issue at length, included that there's some room for leniency. People should make every effort to avoid all activities while making the brachot. See more about this in the Yukachna and in the Vaya'am Shemuel. So again, right? Then he says the wordings of the Yaakov Yosef is a little bit confusing. He says, because although it cites both of the sides of the issues, it appears to give more legitimacy to the lenient opinion than it deserves. There should be more emphasis for the correctness of avoiding engaging in any activity while making a bracha. This is especially important regarding the bracha v'shel Yatzar, being that it represents so many unique, powerful concepts. Meaning, even though the Yaakov Yosef brings on both opinions, right, as an ishmak tzat yoter mekel, but again, especially to do with Asher Yatzar, a person should be very, very careful in what he's actually doing. Have a wonderful